forget to hit record. So hopefully everybody can see me and hear me okay, and we'll go ahead and we'll get things kicked off here. So what are we going to talk about today? It's another Tuesday. Can you believe it? The time is absolutely flying. We're already into September. Summer's gone. Kids are back to school. You know, people are getting back to work. Holidays are over. And these Tuesdays are just coming and going so quickly. But today, what I want to do is we want to focus on self-worth. Extremely, extremely important topic for your personal development and for the people you work with. Everything comes down to self-worth. Excuse me. When I talk about self-worth, primarily, I know there's different definitions. We're not being exact here, but self-worth, self-love, self-esteem, self-motivation, self-confidence, primarily, and this is actually a very good saying, all of these things equal self-empowerment. That's what we're going to focus on today. I'm going to refer to it as self-worth, but again, self-esteem, self-image, all, in my opinion anyway, just basically different slight variations, obviously. But for the purpose of this training, it's all going to mean the main thing. And it's critical. It's critical to our day-to-day lives. It's critical. Everything that we do, everything you become is all going to basically stem from your image of yourself, you know, your worthiness. And I told you before, and I'm not ashamed to admit it, when in my younger days, it's something that I struggled with. Again, I didn't come from the best of backgrounds, and it definitely, my self-image in the very early days, it took a long time, a lot of work to develop it. But yeah, it definitely can have a negative effect. So it's something you have to be very aware of when you're working with clients. And it's something you'll identify very quickly. You'll identify it in their goals. You'll identify it in the dashboard. You'll identify it in their daily actions and even their growth as you're tracking their growth. Because it all is going to come down to that person's self-image, their sense of worthiness. So again, we'll spend a good bit of time on it tonight. But what I want to do is I want to kick things off with a story. It's not my story. I'm not telling the story. I'm gonna play a video clip. It's a short video clip. It's only about 6 minutes long, and then we'll get more into the lesson. But I think it's very relevant. I think it's not a TED Talk or anything like that. It's just literally a cute story. But I think it's a powerful story. I think it sums up very well what the topic of tonight is really all about. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to play this. Like I say, it's not very long. It's only, I think in total, a little over 6 minutes. And hopefully you guys will be able to hear it. If there's any problems, as always, please let me know. And we'll go ahead and we'll have a good discussion afterwards. We'll cover a lot of information afterwards because it ties in very nicely to what we're doing here at One Source.
I want to share a very important story with you today. It's a story I think everyone should hear. Before he died, a father said to his son, "Here is a watch your grandfather gave me. It's almost 200 years old. Before I give it to you, go to the jewelry store in the city. Tell them that I want to sell it and see how much they offer me." The son went to the jewelry store, came back to his father and said, "They offered $100 because it is so old." The father said, "Well, try the pawn shop." The son went to the pawn shop, came back to his father and said, "The pawn shop offered only $20 because it has a scratch." The father asked his son to go to the museum and show them the watch. The son quietly questioned his father's judgment, but still willing to act on his father's last wishes, he went to the museum, and when he came back, he said to his father, the curator offered $375,000 for this rare piece to be included in their precious antique collection. The father responded, I wanted to show you that the right place will value you in the right way. Don't find yourself in the wrong place and get angry because you are not valued. Never stay in a place where someone doesn't see your value or you don't feel appreciated. If you don't know your value, you will always settle for far less than you deserve. People who don't know their value settle for far less than they are worth in relationships or their friendships. When it comes to their profession or their job, they know they are worth more, but they settle for someone else's definition of their worth. That is the difference between most people and the few. That is the difference between people who love the life they have created for themselves and those who can't stand the life they are living. You have to know your worth. Most people will allow just about anyone to influence their perception of themselves. But people who love their life refuse to accept the opinions of small-minded people. They refuse to be put in a box. They will not be defined by anyone but themselves. They know their value is set by themselves, by their own thoughts about who they are, not someone else's opinion of what they are worth. Don't let them put a price on you. You set your own price. And don't go giving discounts to other people so you can fit in or be liked. People pleasers never end up happy in the end. Put yourself first. You must build your self-worth by the work you do every day. You build it by the way that you show up every single day, day in and day out. No excuses, no shortcuts, just a relentless dedication to be the best that you can be. If you have someone in your life that tries to diminish your abilities in any way, the time has come to move those people along. It's time to awaken that part of you that demands more from your life, because only you know what you are truly capable of. It's time to wake up and shock the world. Shock those who doubted you with a disturbing level of determination. Shock those who doubted you with a commitment to excellence that cannot be matched by those of weak heart. Shock those who doubted you with the actions you take today as you draw a line in the sand and commit to becoming the person no one thought you could be, because only you know what you are truly capable of. In this world, you only have to earn the respect of one person. That person is you. You determine the level you demand of yourself. It's time to demand more. It's time to prove once and for all who you are, who you will become, and what you will never settle for again. Raise your standards. Rise up to a higher level. And let no one question your integrity again. Day by day, brick by brick, you start now. You build the foundations through the self-work you put in every single day. Build yourself up by becoming an unbreakable force, an unstoppable machine, fueled by the results you get from the work you put in today and every day, from this day until your last day. No more will you settle for someone else's opinion of your value. Now you determine your value through your self-work, your self-education, your self-determination of your own destiny, the destiny that is in your hands. Your pride grows stronger every day from the work you put in. The time for change is now. When it comes to your own self-worth, there is no tomorrow. Know your worth and never, ever settle for anything less.
Now, okay, guys, so a little bit dramatic, but a great message. I think it's a fantastic message. I think it all comes down to knowing your worth. I do like the way that he didn't just focus on know your worth. He focused on the day-to-day activity, the work that you had to do in order to create that worth. Because that's the one message I want to make sure everybody gets here. You can't just say I'm worth X amount, whether it be in your relationships, whether it be in your finances, no matter what the case may be, without laying the foundation, without doing the day-to-day work that's going to be required in order to be in order to create that value, I suppose, within yourself. But often, often I think that we totally underestimate our value, and not just in the workplace, in every area of your life. Your relationships being a key one. We're going to get into it a little bit more as we progress here, but relationships is a really good example. Like, if you don't value your relationship with yourself, your own self esteem, well, it's going to affect every other area of your life. I can promise you that. And that's part of what we want to focus on today. But he has to he made the statement there about being in the right place. Are you in the right place? Not here. Obviously, I think you're in the right place here because I value you. I think everybody here values each other very much so. But in all the areas of your life, that's what I want to primarily focus on today. And that's the message, I suppose, that I want to come across when you're working with clients. Are they in the right place with their relationships, with their finances, as far as their career or whatever the case may be? And even in their own personal growth or in their health, are they really in the right place where they're being valued for what they have to offer? But again, the message has always got to be you've got to build that foundation. You have to create the value. But when the value has been created, you have to understand it and you have to make sure that you get what you deserve. Um, in a previous life, I would have explained this before. I was in something that was called asset recovery, and specifically in the IT sector. And primarily, what I did was I went around to different either manufacturers or primarily large companies that had a lot of IT equipment, and when they were doing upgrades or they were decommissioning. And primarily, I would go in and I would try to get all that equipment, and I would try to get it for free because what we would try to do, and we did very successfully a lot of times, these companies, they would just want to get rid of it. They would want to make sure that they do it in an environmentally friendly way. They would go ahead and give it to us to decommission for them. But obviously, there was a lot of value still in this equipment. We would strip the stuff down and we would sell out the power supplies. I won't get too technical with it and everything else. But again, you would always look for a lot more value. It was a business, and I got to be quite good at it. And but again, it's the same thing in life. People will always be trying to get more from you than you're worth. I mean, primarily, you're worth more than primarily they're prepared to pay you. And again, whether that be in the relationships, whether that be in your job, whatever the case may be, always people will be trying to get more for less. So, are you in the right place in every area of your life right now? When it comes to relationships, that's what I want to take a look at today. A lot. I want to focus primarily on all the areas, but two specifically: your relationships and your finances. But we have a very powerful tool to go ahead and help you to identify your value, to help you to identify and improve your self-worth. And it's all in that dashboard. Rather, when you're working with a client or when you're working with yourself on yourself, just for your own personal development, you can track your progress there. And if you're not familiar with this standard chart, you all have it. I really encourage you to make sure that you go ahead and you get to know it very well, because primarily it's going to have a lot to do with your self-esteem, your self-worth, even your self-confidence primarily. If you look at that chart, and we'll look at the key area average to begin with, and any one of those areas, let's just say any of those subcategories in your relationships, if you're consistently coming in at a 0.25 or a 0.31, well, you don't have a whole lot of value there. And I'm not saying it in a negative way. We all start from where we are. When you're working with a client, you never, ever, ever want to go ahead and push them too hard too soon. You let them start from wherever they are. But again, if you want to improve your own self-image, if you want to improve your client's self-image, raise those points, because it's something that people can see. They can reach out and they can they can't touch it on the keyboards, I suppose, but they can see it, they can touch it, and they can track it. And through that daily consistent action and seeing things grow, whether it be in the relationships, whether it be in the health, whether it be in the growth, it really improves your self-image. I mean, it's a really powerful tool, and I just want to make sure that everybody fully understands, again, for your own personal development, but specifically for the clients when you're working with them. You want to be very aware. Like if you're working with somebody and they're starting out and they're, say, for an example, a 0.5, over a period of time, if that individual is moving up to a 0.75, a 0.81, if you're doing that, honestly, do you not think that your self-image is going to improve? Your self-worth is going to improve? Of course it is, because you can see it, you can track it. So really important to get good at and get a good understanding of this standard chart when you're working on yourself and when you're working with the clients as well. It really is. It's a unique tool, and nobody else out there is using anything like it. So I strongly encourage you to get real comfortable with it. And again, when you're working with clients, take the time to explain it to them, to review it with them, to point out when they are making that progress. Because that daily consistent action, day in, day out, when they can see it, when they're putting in their own scores, and they can see that improving on a consistent basis, it's reinforcing their self-belief, their self-image, increasing their confidence, overall, giving them a stronger self-worth in that area. And when you look at the overall average, the same concept. So you have the individual categories and you have the overall average, and they both have the same results, reinforcing on a consistent basis the individual for either yourself or the individual you're working with. So I just want to really make a point of that. And apologies if I went on a little bit too long about it, but I think it's really important. I think it's really important that you get to understand that, to know how powerful it really is. But another really strong technique for improving your self-worth is with daily affirmations. Similar to your purpose statement, saying things through the power of repetition, mixing in strong positive emotions, doing it consistently over and over and over again. What are you doing? You're programming your subconscious mind. The exact same concept of what we do when it comes down to your purpose statement. but you can use affirmations to go ahead and to really get, build up your self-image, but also your self-worth, and primarily help you to design and create the life you're looking for. Um, it's really important when you go ahead and you say those affirmations, just like with the purpose statement, and we would have went through this many times before, but you mix in strong positive emotions when you say it. You say it out loud. You do it over and over and over again. Again, your subconscious mind is going to begin to believe it. The stronger the emotions are, the more feeling you mix into it, and the more times you say it over and over and over again. That's what we're looking to achieve here. It's always a good idea when you're doing affirmations to make sure that you start off with I, or whenever possible, I am. So it's in the present tense. For an example, say, I am worthy of love and respect. Okay? But don't just say it bland. I am worthy of love and respect over and over and over again. If that's an issue you're challenging, you're having a challenge with, we all know people. Some of us are guilty of it ourselves, because of previous relationships, our upbringing, whatever the case. Just not feeling that you're worthy of love and respect, and that's damaging, and that's going to affect everything in that individual's relationships, and it's going to affect their physical health. It's going to affect their emotional health. It's going to affect everything, right down to how much money they're earning. But again, you can go ahead and through the power of repetition and daily affirmations, you can, by just doing the same thing as that purpose statement over and over and over again. And I know you guys know this stuff, but sometimes it's one thing to know it, it's another thing to do it. Are you actually doing it? Are you using affirmations? Another one, I am worthy of the best things in my life. A lot of people don't feel like they deserve to have that nice car, that they don't deserve to have a nice house. They don't deserve to have money in the bank. They don't deserve to go on those holidays. They don't think they're worthy of it. So if you want to correct it, or if you're working with somebody, introduce affirmations. Another one, I feel happy, fulfilled, and proud of myself. So many people ain't proud of what they're doing. I like to say, you might be guilty of it yourself. I don't know. But you should. You should be very proud. You should be very proud of being part of this, because you're taking the effort. You're working on improving yourself. You should be proud of that. You should be proud of using the system. You should be proud of wanting to help people. But a lot of people, for whatever reason, because of their upbringing and things, they don't feel worthy of it. They don't feel, that they're proud of their activities. Maybe they're living in the past. Maybe they're just doing all those things that previously they might have been guilty of. But again, be proud of yourself, and again, through the power of repetition. So I came across this on a blog, and again, I'm always looking at different things. I'm looking at different systems, methods, techniques, different blogs, whatever the case may be. And I think this actually worded incorrectly. It says how to overcome feeling of self-worth. I think they probably meant to say something like how to overcome negative feelings of self-worth. But I thought the message was strong. It's similar to what we're doing. But again, start the morning off right. Obsess over things you love. Keep a journal. Stop pushing others away. Eat healthy. Exercise. Love others. Get rid of those who are negative. That's a must. You can't. Sometimes you can't. Well, I shouldn't say it's a must, because sometimes you have negative people in your family that you just can't get rid of. But you can limit your time with those individuals. But again, nobody needs to have negative people around them all the time. Do your best to really refrain from having those people in your life. Be with someone who likes to show you off, and that goes for men and women. It's not just a matter of they're just showing you off as a trophy. They're proud of you as who you are, as a person. They're proud to talk about you. They're proud to introduce you to their friends. They're proud to go ahead and introduce you to to their colleagues. That's the type of individual you want to be with. Live in the present. Don't get caught up in all the crap from the past. Live in the present. Um, and this is one that I agree with personally, but I know everybody doesn't. Unplug from social media. Social media, I think, is really negative when it comes to self-worth because it's all false. Most of it is false. And people are taking these pictures and they're airbrushed and uh, they have those whatever lenses on or what I don't filters, filters that they put on to make things look better, and they're posing so many times before they put it up. It's nonsense, in my opinion. I apologize if you do that. I'm not trying to judge. I'm not. Maybe it's my age. I don't know, but I think it's very negative. I think it's a great idea to limit the social media time that you spend on social media, because I do think a lot of it is false, and I don't think it does a whole lot for your self worth. I think you're comparing yourself to others, and it's not realistic. Self worth, self esteem, self confidence. Again, I think they're all one and the same, but primarily they're the steps required for building a life, with health, happiness, and vitality. You cannot build a proper or design a proper, happy, healthy, enjoyable, loving life if you don't have the self-worth, if you don't have this high self-esteem, if you don't have that self-confidence. You have to be very aware of it in yourself and the others meaning the individuals that you're working with. And again, that dashboard that'll point it out when you're going ahead and you're setting goals with somebody. And again, at the beginning, people start from where they are. But if you're working with somebody, 3, 6 months down the road, and they're still going very easy on setting their goals, well, I'm not saying that they should not set unrealistic goals, but one thing for sure, you want to make sure that people, well, they just don't feel worthy of, or they're afraid of failure because they just don't think they can possibly, they're not confident enough to think that they can achieve it. And that's always a real good indicator, that dashboard. So, but again, self-worth, self-esteem, self-confident, you cannot build a happy, healthy life, in my opinion, without those. So, where does self-worth, what role does it play in our 4 key areas? Again, I said at the beginning, primarily, I want to focus on 2 specifically, but it affects all the areas. There's no question about it. But in my opinion, probably the most relevant would be in the area of the relationships and your finances when it comes to your self-worth. But again, definitely in your personal growth and definitely in your level of health and fitness as well. But when you start seeing your worth, you'll find it harder to stay around people who don't. So when it comes to your relationship, and again, I understand there could be family members. I'm not telling you to cut those people loose. I'm not telling you to turn around and walk out of a relationship that you've spent a good bit of your life creating and building. That's not what I'm saying here. I want to be very strong about that message. But I want you to evaluate it. Are there people that, well, they just don't, maybe they don't value, they don't value who you are, what you bring to the table. They don't value your worth. And maybe you've been around those people for so long, you haven't either. You've actually undervalued yourself. But the more you're with us, the more your clients that you're working with, the more they're with you. They're going to start to identify their worth. And that's when it's going to be come time to start evaluating some of those relationships. But again, I want to be very clear on that message. I'm not suggesting to anybody to just make a very quick decision based on this lesson to terminate a relationship. That's not what I'm saying. I'm asking you to take the time to really evaluate it. The only time I would ever tell anybody to end a relationship immediately is if it's abusive. But other than that, take time to evaluate it and see what your role is in it. But again, don't be surprised when you work with clients as they start to begin to really, I guess, their self-worth increases and they start to believe it more and they start to really identify it and start to understand their worth. And again, in relationships with their partners, even with their friends, with their colleagues, with their job, whatever the case may be, it affects all the areas, like I say, with themselves even. But with the more you identify how much you're worth, it'll become more evident that of those people who don't value you. And that's when it's time to maybe do an evaluation. You know, one thing as well, a very important message. On your journey to recognize self-worth, never compare yourself to anyone. You know, you don't have to compare yourself. You're doing this for you. Okay? Don't That's why I was saying about social media, why I think social media is so negative. People are always comparing themselves to those images, and it's not a true reflection. But it's never, even forget about social media, even people in the workplace, whatever the case, it's very easy to compare yourself to people and think, oh my God, they have the perfect life. It must be so amazing. Perfect husband, perfect wife, perfect kids, perfect house, perfect career. Everything's amazing. And truth be told, you don't really know that. You don't know what goes on behind closed doors. Don't compare yourself to people based on the image that you get in your mind about that individual, positive or negative. Don't say, well, I'm doing great because that person's doing horrible, and don't say I'm doing terrible because that person's doing great. Focus on you. You know, that's what this whole journey is about. Personal development. It's all about focusing on yourself. So you don't have to compare yourself to anybody, but focus on yourself. Um, Self-worth is so vital to our happiness, which is obviously very evident. If you don't feel good about you, it's hard to feel good about anything. And that's what we always say when we're talking about relationships. The most important relationship you have is that relationship with yourself. You have to have a loving, respectful, meaningful relationship with yourself. And if you don't, it's going to affect every single area. You've heard me say that before. This is just a different way of phrasing it. But it's the truth. Self-worth is so vital to our happiness. If you don't feel good about you, it's hard to feel good about anything else. So again, work on yourself. Feel good about who you are. Um, Take a look at the people that you're associating with, your friends, those people. Not again, I'm not talking about always family. I know you can limit your time with your family though. Depending on when I talk about family, I'm talking brothers, sisters, things like that. But Jim Rohn, as you all know, I'm a big fan of Jim Rohn. And for some of the new people, Jim Rohn was Tony Robbins' original mentor. Tony Robbins, at the age of as just a kid, as a teenager, went to work for Jim Rohn. And Jim Rohn was one of the fathers of personal development, one of the early people to really do great work with personal development. But he always says, you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. And that has to do with your income, but also your attitude, your intelligence, everything. So take a look at around the people that you're spending that time with. No, you're going to be the average. Typically, it's not exact science, obviously, but it's relatively correct. You're going to earn as on average, right around those 5 people. You're gonna have a lifestyle very similar to those 5 individuals. So take a good look at the people you're spending time with. And again, I'm not saying that if you have time invested, if these are lifelong friends, I'm not saying to cut ties and run, but maybe widen your circle a little bit. But again, if it's not a positive relationship, yeah, maybe you should cut tail and run. Know your worth. When somebody treats you like you're just one of the many options, help them narrow their choices by removing yourself from the equation. Sometimes you have to try not to care, no matter how much you do, because sometimes you can mean almost nothing to somebody who means so much to you. It's not pride, it's self-respect. Don't give part-time, this is the part that I really like. This is why I put this in here. Don't give part-time people a full-time position in your life. Know your value and what you have to offer. Never settle for anything less than you deserve. Really important message there. Don't give part-time people a full-time position in your life. That's the bit that I really got from that saying. But again, you have to know your worth. And if you're not worth it at the moment in your own mind, work on it. Take that daily consistent action. You can improve any area of your life. If you haven't been the best friend, work on your skills of becoming a better friend. If you haven't been the best employee, work on yourself to become a better employee. But pay attention, know your worth. And if you're not being treated right, even though you might really care about that person, maybe it's time to reevaluate. When it comes to your kids, work on your self-esteem. The best way to really connect with your kids and create them to have good, positive self-esteem is to work on yourself first. Obviously, you're going to work on, and I'm going to get to that in a minute. Obviously, you're going to work on them along the way. But if you're fortunate enough to have kids, it's really important that you work on your self-esteem because they pick up on that. Trust me, they pick up on that. And if you have a bad self-image about yourself, I can guarantee you 100% it's having a negative impact on those individuals. And if you don't have kids, it's still important that you understand this because you're going to be working with clients that have kids. So again, you want your kids to thrive, you better work on your self-esteem. It's critical. And then also, when it comes to your children, parents need to fill a child's bucket of self-esteem so high that the rest of the world can't poke enough holes to drain it dry. So true. When you're fortunate enough to have those children from a young age, it's vital. And it's never too late to start. If you screwed up, doesn't matter. Start today. If you're working with your clients that have small kids, get that message to them. Self-esteem in those children is so critical because they're going to carry that with them the rest of their lives. So if you want to do something great for your kids, if you want to do something great for your clients, get that message across. Make sure that if they've got small children, if you have small children, you're taking every opportunity to build that child's self-esteem. So what role does self-worth play in health and fitness? You have a general idea now about relationships, and I know you get this stuff, guys. But what about health and fitness? Does it play a role in health and fitness? Well, mental health, definitely. If you're always doing negative self-talk, if you're always beating yourself up, if you have a low self-image, low self-esteem, I can guarantee it's affecting your mental health. You want to make sure you're very aware of it. You want to make sure the clients you're working with, that you understand the impact that low self-esteem low self-worth can have in the area of mental health. Depression, always. If somebody's depressed, I can almost assure you that they have a poor self-image at that particular time. When they're feeling depressed, it's going to tie back to a low self-image, low self-esteem. As far as your diet and your exercise, we know that's a big part of our system. We know it's a big part of controlling your diet, making sure that you get enough exercise. But obviously, it has health effects to it, health benefits, increase your energy, your longevity. But it also makes you feel better, increases your level of self-worth. When you look better, when you move, more confidently, it has a major impact. And I know, I told you, I shared some pictures with some people from many years ago. I used to be grossly overweight. And I tell you what, I feel so much better today than I did then. My self-worth went through the roof once I dropped the weight and I started getting into shape. Not only did it help me as far as my energy and everything and my health challenges that I was facing at the time, but my self-image went through the roof. You feel more confidence in business meetings, in social interactions, everything you're doing, you feel better when you take the time to control your diet and your exercise. On the negative, and this is something I want to put in there because it's something that I identify myself very often when working with clients. Some people are perfectionists, not all. Some people just have high standards, and you got to learn to identify the difference. But when you're using that dashboard and you're seeing and you're setting goals, you want to keep an eye out and try to identify somebody who's got high standards or somebody who's just a bit of a perfectionist. Because being a perfectionist, and we talked about this there a few weeks ago, but being a perfectionist a lot of times can really lead, and it all stems from low self-esteem. They have low self-esteem, a poor self-image, so they're trying to be perfect in everything they can do. And no matter what they do, they never feel it's good enough. And that all comes from a low self-esteem. Again, exercise to improve self-esteem. It'll put it through the roof. I guarantee it doesn't happen overnight. But if you want to really, as far as health goes, the best thing you can do for somebody is get them into a regular exercise and diet program to give them a big boost to their self-confidence, their self-esteem, their self-image. Okay, and what about the area of personal growth? We covered the relationships, health and fitness. What about personal growth? Well, personal development is really just a belief you're worth the effort and the energy needed to develop yourself. That to me sums it up. If you don't think you're worth it, you're not going to do it. But as you begin to grow, as you start to invest in yourself, as your clients begin to invest their time and their energy and their efforts into their personal growth, they're doing it because they think they're worth it. You're doing it because you think you're worth it. If you're doing it anything like that consistently, if you're working on your skills, if you're working on anything as far as learning new techniques, learning, whether it be reading, writing, whatever, doing some form of creativity, whatever the case, whatever you're doing to go ahead and improve yourself and grow overall, well, you're doing it because you think you're worth it. And as you track that progress on the dashboard, you'll see as it goes up, your self-image, your self-worth will increase. You'll cement it in, you'll do more of it. But again, that sums it up nicely. I think personal development is the belief that you are worth the effort. That's it right there. Time and energy needed to develop yourself. Personal development also when it comes to your self growth, when or personal development, when it comes to primarily your self worth, it's going to increase your belief in you do it like I just said because you believe you're worth it, but primarily you're going to believe in yourself. I like the way it's got, and I didn't actually cop this at the beginning, so where it shows how smart I am. The be you, believe in yourself, be you. It's okay just to be you, because you're happy with where you are. You're self confident. You have a good self image. You believe in yourself. Be you. But what about the area of your finances and your self worth? Obviously, it affects the relationships, it affects your health, it affects your growth. What about the area of your finances? Well, I want to share a story about a guy I know, a very good friend of mine. This is a very good friend of mine by the name of Brian Warren. Now, Brian, he's a quite unique individual. Brian is the guy actually who got me into asset recovery. Many years ago, I was involved in the telecommunications business. I had built up a customer base. I sold it off, and I was looking for something else to get involved in. And Brian, I didn't even know Brian. He's based in Dublin, and he was in asset, not so much asset recovery. He was in recycling, electronic recycling. And primarily, he came across a bunch of telecommunications equipment, didn't know what it was worth. He could strip it for the metals, but he knew it was only worth a few thousand. If he stripped it for the metals, he knew it was worth more than that, but didn't know how to go ahead and to find a buyer. So long story short, he knew somebody in the States who knew me. They put him in touch with me. I went out there. Didn't know much about the equipment, but I knew he was right. It was worth money. Did a bit of research, wound up selling the equipment to a crowd who came over from the States for 120,000 euros when he was only going to get maybe 5,000-6,000 max in scrap value for it. And from that time on, obviously, we were great friends. He gave me a very nice piece of it. But in addition, he gave me the opportunity to start doing asset recovery for his company. His company was called ICT Company, which is why we actually have the name One Source ICT to begin with today. A little bit of history for you. Because I didn't want to go to work for him, but I said I'd form my own company and I would work on a contract basis for him. And we made a lot of money together over the years. Still a great friend of mine today. But the reason I apologize for being too long-winded. The reason I'm telling you about Brian is because Brian, when it comes to self-worth, self-image, he's got that. I don't know anybody who's got a better self-image than Brian. Brian is the type of guy, everything he does has got to be first class. First class. Now, he's always made a lot of money, but I don't think he makes that kind of money, to be honest with you. And I'm not saying anything out of school here. I've said it to his face. But he lives a lifestyle that you would not believe. Top of the range BMW, always, him and his partner always lives in an amazing house. Holidays, 5-6 amazing holidays a year. Goes out to eat in the best of restaurants, always wears the Rolex, whatever the case may be, which is fine if he was making 4 or 5 million a year. But I don't think he ever made that kind of money. He makes good money, don't get me wrong. But Brian, he just loves the good life. And I'll never forget, one time him and I took a trip over to Florida. We went to go see a client over there, and he was picking up the tab because we had done a lot of business together. And he said, I want to take you on a trip. He said, I'm going to pick up the tab. And I tell you what, we spent 5 days in Florida, but we flew over first class. And I'm not a first class type of guy. I don't fly first class any place because I just don't see the value in it. But we flew over first class. We stayed in an amazing 5-star resort. right on the ocean, rented a Mercedes when we got there, went out every single night to the best of restaurants. I mean, I'm not exaggerating. He probably spent about 15, 18 grand on me alone just in this period of time. And I'm not saying that for only because it's the lifestyle he lives, but it all comes down to what I'm about to say next. On that trip, I said to him, "No, Brian, why did you always have to fly first class, and why do you got to rent, a Mercedes when you get here instead of just a regular car? And why do you got to stay in a five-star resort? Because I'm used to, like you say, that's not my style at all." Um, and I always remember his answer. He looked at me serious as a heart attack, and he says, "Well, Patrick, I believe I'm worth it." And he wasn't saying it in an egotistical way. He wasn't saying it in any other way than and the fact that he primarily he's got such a good self-image of himself that he just believes that's what he's worth. He knows his worth and he lives it. And me, I'd be stressed because I'd always be worrying. I wouldn't live a lifestyle like that unless I was making serious, serious, serious money. And even then I wouldn't be comfortable probably doing it. But again, he's always managed to live this lifestyle as long as I know him. I just talked to him last week. He's retired now. And he actually lives on a golf course, and he's telling me how he goes golfing every day and everything else. But he's still living this lifestyle. But again, the reason I'm even telling you that story is because it all comes down to his self-worth. And that's when it comes into money. Brian always believed he never did nothing small. Like when we would do deals, if it was small deals, he didn't even want to even look at them. Everything was a big deal. Only interested in big deals. And it's because he knew that's where the money was and he knew that was going to fund his lifestyle. But he did it because he thought he was worth it. So if you want to increase your finances, increase your self-worth. And again, I'm not telling you to go live that lifestyle and spend beyond your means or anything like that. We're all not as gifted as Brian. He's a really intelligent guy, and he's a quite unique individual. I'm proud to call him one of my best friends. But yeah, great guy. But again, I just thought the story was very relevant because it ties in with money. And he's the one guy I respect more than anybody who lives that. He lives that lifestyle because he thinks he's worth it. He's got a good, but not in an egotistical, negative way, any way, shape, or form. The nicest guy on the planet, as far as I'm concerned. But again, he thinks he's worth it, and because he thinks he's worth it, because he has a strong self-image, he gets it. If you accept less because you thought a little, sorry, you accepted less because you thought a little was better than nothing. Know your worth. How many of us are guilty of that? I'd say we're all guilty of that. Accepting less because we thought, well, a little is better than nothing. Know your worth. You don't need to accept it, especially when it comes to business, especially comes to your when it comes to your finances. But I want to get the message very clear. Self-worth. Don't ever get so caught up in your self-worth that you tie it to your net worth. Don't become one of these people that believe unless you make ungodly amounts of money, you have no self-worth. It's not true. You don't need it. You can have a very strong self-image and self-worth and be quite satisfied and content while you're building. But I know too many people I've met along the way that tie everything to money. And when times are good, they feel great about themselves. But through bad decisions or through the marketplace or whatever the case may be, mostly things that are out of their control, things don't go the way they plan. Well, now all of a sudden their self-worth is, down the toilet, primarily because, their finances, their net worth goes down. Don't ever make that mistake of tying the two of them together too strongly. Know your worth and stop giving people discounts. Stop working for less, but Be realistic though. Make sure you know, that's the key thing there. Know your worth. Don't just pick a number out and say, oh, I'm worth it, if you're not. If you don't have the skills, invest in yourself, acquire the skills. If you don't have the talent, invest in yourself. Create the talent through hard work and daily repetition. And that's the message for you and the clients you're working with. But if you find yourself consistently trying to prove your worth to somebody, you have already forgotten your value. Don't be in a position, whether it be your relationships or whether it be your job, where you're always trying to prove your worth. Once you know your worth, if they don't identify it, if they can't recognize it, well, maybe you're not in the right place. Sometimes the hardest part of the journey is just believing you're worth the trip. Again, believing in yourself. But self-respect, self-worth, self-love all start with self. Stop looking outside of yourself for your value. Everything is within you. You have it. Don't look to your employer. Don't look to your friends. Don't look to your partner to create your value, to your self-worth. You have it. It's all within you. So that's the message. Strongest message I can encourage you to take from this. Everything you have is within you. So, but it's up to you to believe, and you have to work at it. Don't just think, oh, I value myself. I'm worth X amount. I'm worth this much. If you're not putting the work into relationships, well, you need to. Don't be saying, oh, these people don't respect my value as a friend, as a partner, as a father, as a mother, as whatever the case may be, a member of the community. If you're not putting the work in, you got to put the work in. You got to create that worth. But when you create it, make sure that you value it and you identify it. So other than that, guys, we are going to wrap it up. Hopefully you got the message there. Again, always appreciate everybody coming in. I do apologize. I didn't get to talk to everybody as much as I would have liked to at the beginning. But I am going to be around. I don't have anything going on immediately after this. So now's a good time. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, if you need to talk to me about anything, I'm there. Drop me a message, drop me a WhatsApp. And until next time, thanks very much. James, have a great trip, buddy. Appreciate it. And hope to see you soon. And everybody else, will see you again real soon. All right. All the best, everyone. Bye-bye.